Yeah, like Lenin or something.
Yeah, Andy Burnham.
Well, no, not like that.
He's similarly...
He had a Rolls-Royce with skis.
Similarly to Sadiq Khan feels that he was left out because he knew a lot of people, apparently, who knew some people in Wuhan. That was his area of expertise. Have a look at this.
Manchester, as a city, had a long-standing twinning arrangement with Wuhan. So some of the familial connections that our Chinese community had were with that area. So I attended 2 community meetings in January, and I think one going into early February, when the community was in a very high state of alarm and was asking for my help to get PPE through Manchester Airport, donations sent over. So I really became very aware of just how serious the situation was.
It's like people saying, I used to know this guy, and he had a shop, and he had some relatives in another place, and that's why I'm an expert. I mean, that's literally the most ridiculous thing I think I've ever heard.
It's quite a stretch, isn't it? Yeah, as long as you didn't copy the Wuhan authorities. Wasn't it in Wuhan where they welded people into their houses?
Yeah, and they had that kind of cattle prods that was shaped like that.
But I do remember
there
was a moment in Manchester, didn't they try and put fencing around student accommodation?
They locked them in.
Yeah,
they did, I remember that. Because there were people leaning out windows begging for food because they couldn't get out.
Yeah, that was quite Wuhan.
But it does show you
there were a few kind of high watermarks of absolute lunacy and hysteria that I had forgotten about. And during the COVID inquiry, we've been reminded of these things. And it's extra. I mean, I think even those of us who are more sceptical, it was not a good time to live through. So you sort of suppress what happened in your mind. And then you're reminded that there was once a proposal to kill all the dogs and cats, literally like they did during the bubonic plague.
And it was like, if you suggested that might not be a good idea, you were some kind of maniac because you didn't care about people dying.
Well, that was the thing.
And you were like, seriously? I remember I didn't go, for the first 8 weeks, I didn't go to see my kids who live in Sussex at the weekends because I was genuinely concerned that I wouldn't get back into London because I thought, I'm going to meet some maniac on the M25 with some kind of circle of steel that's going to say, no, you're not allowed back into London.
Well, it wasn't clear whether that would or would not happen. Of course, people in our position would be foolish to risk it anyway. But it was very strange. But I didn't. I thought the whole thing was mad and stupid and wrong and bad. And once I got used to this and knew, for instance, that we would shortly go through the most tremendous bout of inflation and economic damage which we're now going through, I knew this.
Right.
I turned my sense of humour up to maximum and resolved to enjoy it as much as possible just by laughing at it, because as I did when I was living in the Soviet Union, it's the same sort of thing. In mad places, you just have to laugh.
I did enjoy your gas mask very much.
The gas mask was great. I mean, that was a...
It was a real Polish Army gas mask.
Have you still got it?
I once rode through Kensington Gardens on a Ken Livingstone bike wearing it to see what would happen.
Yes.
And nobody batted an eyelid.
Well, I think because everything was so nutty. I mean, I remember once going to use the tube for the first time in a while, and there were 2 police officers on the other side of the gates, right? So I went through, and I remember getting the Chris Philp, who was the Justice Minister, on to say, what is the actual law here? He didn't know.
No.
Because as I walked through, one of them said, "Have you got a mask, sir?" And I said, "Yes, I have, thank you very much." And I just kept going, and he sort of shouted after me, "You're supposed to be wearing it." And I'm thinking, well, I thought, I'll just put it on when I get on the train. Well, maybe I won't.
I had to smuggle myself into Wales in the lavatory of a train, because once you crossed the Severn, it was illegal.
I remember this.
Illegal to be on a train without a mask, which I wasn't prepared to do. So I could go and give blood to the Welsh blood transfusion service, who did not insist that you wore a mask while you gave it, whereas the English.
I mean, it's above and beyond this.
I did that.
Yeah.
I did. I stayed in the lavatory on Welsh territory.
And everybody I know, and I'm not asking for confession time here, man, but everybody I know that was sensible was having, dinner parties, was having, I can't say who did this, but somebody I know used to go to a pub where he knew the landlord, and the pub said it's only illegal to sell you the drink. If you come here and I give it to you, it's not a problem. Bring your friends.
Oh,
so there was lots of that stuff going on.
Of course there was. But the gas mask thing, if I may go back to it, there's one occasion, I won't say where or when it was, when I was chided for wearing it by an official who said, "You're just trying to frighten people." I said, "No, that's you."
That's brilliant. He's just trying to frighten people. There's a pandemic on, don't you know? What's wrong with you?
Oh, that's so good. That's very no fight in the war room.
Brilliant. Listen, I wish I could have you both for longer, but I can't.